Hey guys, so in the last clip, we basically broke down our page into 12 sections. We decided to keep our paper landscape as opposed to profile because we can fit 4 across easier this way. We labeled the first one blending, hatching, cross-hatching. I did mention that you can pop in your cubes and your cones and your circles and your cylinders ahead of time, or you can just work row by row. And I'm actually going to just dim the lights a little bit before we get started here. We're going to start with blending. All right, so again, the first thing you want to do is figure out where your light source is coming from. And because we're working from this worksheet, we're going to stick to the upper right. So I'm going to pop in this arrow stating that my light source is coming from the upper right, okay? Because it's coming from the upper right of my square, the majority of the top of my square is going to be highlighted. It could kind of fade out into slight gray, and this whole face is going to be in highlight. So I'm just going to add a little bit of gray, very, very light, like barely there to this side. Let me just zoom in here. Okay, and then again, this face is going to be in shadow as well because it's on the side of the cube where the sun is not necessarily shining. And remember, when you're shading things in, going lighter to darker is the way to go because it's easy to make things darker, but it's not easy to make things lighter. And of course, if our light source is coming this way, then our cast shadow is going to be in this area here on the opposite side of the cube. Okay, so I'm going to take my stomp, and again, don't press the tip. You're using the side of it. You're just going to kind of massage those lines in to get rid of any lines. You want a nice soft transition. Okay, and if you find your pencil runs into areas where you don't want it, especially if you're using your finger and you have larger fingers, you can go back in with your eraser and just clean up the sides of the cube that you want well lit. Okay, so this side here, I'm going to give it a little bit more shadow. And again, I'm using kind of the side of my pencil, just like my stomp, to get a nice soft layer of lead. I don't want any sharp pencil marks in here. Okay, again, guys, you are working from the worksheet that's posted on our classroom LMS. So have that beside you as you're working. You should always be kind of glancing back and forth at it to see what you can add. Okay, and the core shadow is the absolute darkest right at the base of the object. So we can define that by going in with our pencil and getting a really dark value in there. Remember, we're not using any fancy artist pens or pencils, so You're just going to have to use pressure to increase the value. Okay, and then again, you could take the stomp and kind of just the edge of the stomp and just smooth out that edge so that it's a bit more gradual. Okay, and then you can go back and then continue to define your cube a bit more if you need. Clean it up. All right. The next one that we're going to be completing is the cone. So in the last video, we sketched out our cone here really quickly. Again, we want the light source coming from the upper right-hand side. So we're going to indicate that by making a little arrow here. Okay, so this side of the cone is going to be lit. It's going to be in highlight. So we're not going to add anything to this side. Starting in the middle and moving towards the left side, we're going to give the cone some light shadow, okay? And then we're going to create the cast shadow, and it's going to be kind of in a triangular shape here, mimicking the shape of the form. Okay, I'm going to give it some light shadow for now. And then I'm going to go in with my stomp, again, using the side of my stomp. Just massage those pencil lines in so that they're nice and smooth. And I'm going to blend out the cast shadow here. Okay, now I'm going to go in and build up my core shadow. So my core shadow is on the side that's furthest away from the light. And as you notice on the worksheet, there is a little bit of reflected light that's right left on the very edge on the outside of the core shadow. So you don't want to bring the dark shadow right to the edge because remember, this is a curved object. So curved objects like cones, spheres, and cylinders will have that reflected light on the shadow side. Okay, so I'm going to just step a little bit away from the edge and start to add some core shadow. Darken it up here. And then again, the very edge of the shape at the very base, that's where that cast shadow on the ground is going to be the darkest. So I can go back in and define that a bit more by adding more pressure to the pencil. Okay, and now we're going to blend it out and make it nice and soft. So we're going to take our stomp and being careful not to take the core shadow right to the edge. Okay, and then you're going to gradually blend it back into your lighter value there. Okay, same with the bottom. Just smooth it out with your stomp. If you feel like you added gray in places where you wish there was highlight, feel free to use your eraser and work back into those areas. All right, pretty good, eh? Sometimes I like to add just with my the dirty stomp, just to go back in and add like just a little bit of a transitional shadow here. I find that it pops a bit more. Okay, let's see what we can get done in my 15-minute clip here. I know that I'm buzzing through this, but you're more than welcome to watch this and take your time with it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start the sphere. The sphere on the handout, again, the light source is coming from the upper right side. So I'm going to indicate that with my arrow here, meaning that this part of my sphere is going to be in highlight, and this part of the sphere is going to receive some light shadow for now. Kind of just mapping out where the shadow is going to lie on it. And because it's a circular object, the cast shadow is going to be a little bit rounded in the opposite direction of the light source. So kind of in here. Okay, and I can go in with my stomp now and just smooth out some of that initial middle tone. You don't want it to go like white and then straight into a dark shadow. You shouldn't see any lines, right? It should be like a nice smooth gradient where light goes to shadow, one like disappears into the other, kind of melts into each other as opposed to seeing any obvious cuts in light and shadow. Okay, and I'm gonna smooth out this cast shadow on the ground. Again, it's got some kind of like an elongated circle shape to mimic the shape of the object. And I'm going to go in and add some core shadow like the cone, right? Like the cone. Because it's rounded, it's going to have a little bit of reflected light. So my core shadow isn't going to come right to the edge of the sphere. Okay, so I'm going to go in with my pencil and darken the core shadow area, leaving a little bit of space. Okay, and then the base underneath the sphere is going to be the darkest, where the light is completely blocked by this round object. Okay, and I'm going to fade that out with the stomp. And I'm going to soften the core shadow on the sphere. So blending that dark core shadow back into my middle tone. So again, it's a soft transition from light to shadow. And again, you're using the side of your stomp, not the point. Okay, so leaving a little bit of that reflected light at the edge. It doesn't have to be white. It could be like a light gray, but just make sure that your core shadow doesn't go right to the end of your circle. Otherwise, it's going to appear more flat as opposed to three-dimensional. Okay, and then again, go back, add some more dimension to it by doing pops of dark gray here and there where your core shadow is the darkest. It's a lot of back and forth, adding, smudging, erasing, adding, until you're happy with it. All right, and the last one on our list is the cylinder. I'm going to cut this video off right here before it goes too long, and then I'll do a last little clip with the cylinder as an add-on. Okay, but so far we have the cube, the cone, the sphere, and now we'll do the cylinder done in blending, which is our first shading technique used here. Again, we're going to do hatching and then cross hatching in the next 2 rows.